Hi, I'm Steve Hoskinson. I'm the founder of Organic Intelligence. We provide professional training for therapists and coaches and resiliency support for people worldwide. I'm here today to talk a little bit about chaos. You know, if you look in the world around us, chaos is a watchword. It's even more common than the word unprecedented, which has been used in an unprecedented amounts recently. But chaos is especially important because there are numerous definitions of chaos, and I wanted to be specific about this and share some information for you to have a better sense of how to get out of chaos, what to do about chaos in your own life, and how then we can be effective in a stance toward chaos in society also. So the first thing to know is that you may have heard about chaos from chaos theory. There is an entire theory of nonlinear science that is explaining what chaos is. And for sure in organic intelligence, we are seeing a staged and carefully delineated set of phases that move and support a person that goes from chaos into resilience and then prosilience, or really pro-social work in the world. So in chaos theory, chaos simply means that there is an order that we can't really determine. Chaos doesn't mean that there is no order. It just means that things are so complex we can't determine cause and effect. Now, for those of us that are therapists, that's especially important to know, because if a system is in chaos, truly, then I need to be very careful about my intervention, because I don't actually know what the effect of that intervention is going to be. So there are a host of ways that we train people to understand working, say, with a biology that is in chaos. But just to let you know, we will begin by using some tools that are primarily based in human connection and attunement. We train our coaches to be adeptly, relationally attuned. That is, we want to be able to be with the person in a way that really works for them. And for a system in chaos, that chaos has often erupted in the biology because of, say, developmental trauma or early pre- and perinatal states that were especially stressful. In other words, people with high ACEs scores, for instance, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study. And that really points right back to trauma as it lands in the biology. If we're going to work with trauma, we have to understand then that it lands first in the biology and creates chaos there. And what to do about that then means that we have to understand what chaos is in the biology and how to begin to help a person move out of that phase. And for us in organic intelligence, as we're tracking that as a developmental process, we understand it fundamentally as a relational process, as a relational challenge. That is, people are trying to create relationship in fixed ways, or responding to relationship in fixed ways, or misperceiving relational signals all the time. So for us to be able to work well with that, we have to understand how to be with a person in a wide variety of ways, which means my own system needs to be quite flexible, yet organized. And that's beginning to look really at the stage of prosilience, where I have this flexibility, where our system is flexibly adapting to a myriad of environmental stresses or environmental changes that then I have the ability to very naturally adapt into and be comfortable within. But in chaos, that's not the state. Now, many of us in this pandemic time and in this time of social upheaval, in this time of really global distress, relationships, for instance, to climate change, then in these times we often feel chaotic. But that doesn't mean that our system is in chaos. In organic intelligence, we're talking about shifting the frame of reference about what trauma is into this biological level, and understanding that the key variable is not trauma, the history, or even the affects in particular, not the emotions, not the thought, but overall processing. Like, what is the amount of intensity that your biological processor can handle. And it's often talked about as the window of tolerance, but we'll see that in organic intelligence, we are learning to speak to the biology about change in a special way. And that's because biology doesn't want to change, right? The biology doesn't want to change because any change in the fundamental organization of a system might mean disorganization. And so our biology has learned over, a billion years of evolution to play it safe and just say, if you've got a stable system, hang on to that. And so the first rule of the biology is actually keep the status quo. And if we're going to do change work, we have to meet the needs of the system for stability and maintaining the status quo. And oddly enough, that means something pretty special. And that means that to come out of chaos and to create a more organized and organizing and efficient biology, change work can't feel like change work. Change work then is going to be resisted by the biology that says, don't change. Because if you're changing fundamentals, then the system could fundamentally disorganize and that could be fatal. Instead, our change work is going to focus on the growth of capacity through ways that don't feel like change. Those channels are like neutral awareness, and we'll practice some of this, and pleasure. What is the designated channel of our relationship, of our bonding, of our human social interaction, of procreation, of growth and intensity? It's pleasure. And so when we're talking about pleasure and organic intelligence, it's healthy, non-addictive, not very intense, it's not substance-related. It's simple human pleasure. It's our birthright. And by growing our capacity, not through the window of tolerance, but through the window of pleasure, that's how our system wants to grow, and that's how our interventions get past the guard at the gate of the status quo and stay the same. Right? So if we're going to do change work and work with chaos, then we're going to have to learn to grow our system's capacity in this very unusual way, which is positive reinforcement and pleasure. Right? Pleasure activism and the whole notion of enjoyment is increasing, but it's only an initial condition of the conditions that will grow a human biology. And that human biology is going to grow through the ability to experience more intensity, but in a way that doesn't wake up the guard at the gate of status quo, and that's ease and pleasure. Right? So when we're feeling chaotic then, that often means that we are really pushing up against the limit of our threshold of intensity. What we've discovered in OI is that change happens when we reach that thermostatic set point of intensity, in pleasure in particular, because that's where the system learns to grow and learn. There is an ideal threshold of intensity, we call it the organic threshold, that when it is reached, says, oh, I've got a training effect available. I've got a learning environment. I can actually make a step of expansion and growth. And it's like the system, your own biology says, oh, okay, I've done the 10-pound dumbbell. Now that felt pretty good. Let me do the 12-pound. All right, 12 pounds, that felt pretty good, a couple days. I think I'll go to 14 pounds. And it grows its capacity. And it grows its capacity for information processing. It's not just, increasing cardiac fitness, so the analogy breaks down there. It's not just growing quantitatively, like I can do, I can grow my cardiac fitness or grow my aerobic capacity or something. This is fundamentally how much intensity or information, how much bandwidth our system has to process organically. And that's really important because when the system is, when the intensity is bumping up and it's exceeding my organic threshold, I have to start doing something because I feel uncomfortable. And that's averse. And then I have to start compensating. And then we are spending energy trying to tamp down the fire of intensity and that anxiety and that fear and that arousal, that activation. I'm having to do all of these things to tamp that down by exercise, by mantra, by meditation, by all a host of things that are actually necessary, but that are not the most efficient way of working. What we're talking about here is being able to work in the most efficient way, and that most efficient way is by growing our bandwidth, growing our information capacity process, right? And when we don't, and when the intensity is coming up, we feel chaotic. Even if our system is not in chaos, everybody's going to feel chaotic when the intensity is too much. So we're going to train and learn to work in environments that are easier, those environments that don't challenge us so much, and then we will learn a host of skills that are what are called prepared learning. And those skills are the things that your biology wants to do anyway. In other words, the brain is already ready to do the things that we're going to show you and teach you, and it's going to catalyze the resources that the brain wants to be using in any case. And let's start with one of those right now. One of those is what we call orientation, and we'll do just a quick exercise of orientation. And the orientation means this. It means simply getting the attention off of what's going on inside. And this is actually the very opposite of what we as therapists were trained to do. If you're a meditator, we're often told to, attend inside to sensation or image or thought. But here we're going to do something really different. We're going to become aware of how our environment is contacting us. What are the senses that might open and inform our brainstem that, hey, I'm here and now, right here, right now. And when we can do that, then the brain can recognize, okay, so if it's not a dangerous situation, not a life threat, the brain's not going to need to get revved up around fight or flight or freeze. And so we fill the mind, we fill the brainstem with messages of right here, right now, and we do that through orientation, connecting to the environment through the senses. So here's our exercise. Our exercise is, let's not do very much, except let's just let the eyes go where they want to go. Now, letting the eyes go where they want to go. And here, take a moment with this right now, and just see what you see when you see what you see. And bring that external focus, directing the attention exterior. You might have thoughts, you might have emotions, and then we're going to notice those channels, images, emotions, thoughts, and bring the attention back out. Right? There will be often a draw of the attention inside, and now we're bringing the attention back outside. Outside, and letting the eyes just go where they want to go and see what they want to see. Okay? And that is our first exercise. Simply orienting. And you can do this repeatedly, but you have to keep in mind that as we're doing this mindfulness practice, it's foundational. It's a base from which everything else arises. Because if we don't have a tether into this environment, if we haven't let the brain map us in the here and now, then it's easy to get disoriented, say by signals from the biology that are sending status quo messages. And that's the other real treat that I have for you from organic intelligence, which is the biology itself is wanting to grow its capacity, but in this way of positive reinforcement, and that is that there are going to be signals, and we signals from our channels of experience, and we call them Isoma. It's an acronym, and that's for image, sensation, orientation, meaning, and affect. And there are signals coming from those experiences that mostly are messages of status quo. Don't change, keep things as they are, because change could be dangerous. And we are attracted to those because of what's called the negativity bias, or what in OI we call the what's wrong attention. And we are missing vital signals that come from one of the Isoma channels, image, sensation, orientation, meaning, or affect, that would have this supportive influence and grow our intensity in a pleasurable way up to the organic threshold, which catalyzes the growth of processing. We're talking about our CPU here, our brain's processor, so we can grow the ability for problem solving, for emotional bandwidth, for clarity of thinking. We can grow that capacity. I've spent many years assessing intelligence, IQ, and that's thought to be a solid, unchangeable number. And that's because our states, like chaos, like resilience, our main biological states have this strong status quo directive. And so our systems don't change from those systems. But when you do change that, you're growing this capacity for information processing, for connecting the channels of experience, for the entire range of integrative experience, which means intelligence also, that processing of information. And the thing that is most complex, the thing that we want to grow complexity and range for processing, relationships. Because there's nothing more complex than human relationships. And when we as a species get together and into our groups, that's a complex process. And to be able to have our processor online and functioning, that's what we can do. And so that's really the message of organic intelligence. And there's a whole process of learning that I'd be it would be a pleasure for me to teach with you. And we'll offer lots of resources for that that we'll point you to later on. But for now, I just wanted to share a little bit about chaos, that even if you feel like you are in chaos, you may not be in chaos. It may just be that the intensity is too much, and we would talk about intensity. If you're a therapist and you work with clients who are in chaos, then there's going to be a specific developmental protocol that we'll institute to help you see the natural shifting of a system from chaos into resilience, where people can then take action on their own behalf and resource themselves in a way to stabilize, which itself is just the doorway and the portal into the next phase, which is where auto-organization or self-organization happens, and that's where that bandwidth is really popping open and making big changes. So I've been doing this for 20 years. We have a whole coaching program and self-help program called the End of Trauma course. Check out all of that on our website, our YouTube channel, and join us in this approach to relieving chaos from the inside first. I'm Steve Hoskinson. Thanks for watching a little bit about chaos and organic intelligence.